Good day, fellow deal makers. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today's show, we're going to have a conversation with CEO Mark. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Josh.
I'm reading your title and I'm like, all right, CEO of company. And I'm looking through your LinkedIn. Really cool experience. I see certifications from FINRA and SEC, and I see these companies that you're working on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're up to?
Okay. No one's ever led with my SEC or FINRA certifications, but that's actually an important thing, which we'll come back to. Wow. Born in a small town. Where do I start? From Ohio.
Two parents fell in love. Had Mark. Where are you from, man?
Yeah, a place called Newark, Ohio. It's a blue collar town. It's a place. It was a canal town in the 1800s, and from there, I went to Denison University, liberal arts college, and then Michigan Law, so practice law, Cleveland. Having studied in Holland, took a Russian course. It was a different time in the early 90s in Russia. Everything was opening up, so I was excited about it. Went over there to practice law, moved into finance, a place called Price Waterhouse, and eventually joined Arthur Andersen, where I became a partner. And that is the one firm. Those who know Andersen called ourselves one firm. We thought globally, collaboratively. So that in the 361 firm. So this is actually good that I went back. And then I came to New York. But again, I'm from Ohio. I knew more people in London than New York after 8 years in Russia and moving around that part of the world. And I went to an alumni event. I don't know if you've gone to alumni events, but I think that model is broken, where they're always asking alumni for money. They're like milking the cows, never feeding the cows. And so I created something that was different, and that's the 360. I created roundtables where we all get together and introduce ourselves and share our asks so we can help each other. And from there, I joined a family office who wanted nothing to do with Russia or technology or media, which was the only thing I knew, but I really learned a lot about his parts of his industries and working with private equity. And that was was exhilarating and magical, but sometimes actually, to be honest, a lot of times frustrating, dysfunctional. So when we sold something, a bank, I had a blank sheet of paper, 2016-ish, and I was accelerating all my alumni networking for Denison and Michigan, and I started to have family office roundtables. First one was in Boston in March of 2016, I remember. And then, so this is nice. Did an alumni event, Boston. We did it across 15 cities in the US, then London, then from Michigan across Asia, Middle East. And I figured out my model. So we're sort of creating what I wish our family office had in 4 different vectors. And I think that people collaborate well if there's a shared interest or a shared experience. And that alumni part is a shared experience. And it could be you're an Andersen alum. We're an organization that imploded. Rest in peace, in 2002. So that's a foxhole we all experience. We can finish each other's sentences. Same with colleges and the rest. But then the interests, we would do these events and you'd have roundtables around your interests. And so that gave me the idea. And so I was learning, you and I were talking earlier, how much we've learned from all the people. So at this point, we've done events in 60 cities, 20 countries. We've had, I had over 5,000 alumni participants, but I put that chapter behind me, although some of them have now come to this platform. We've had another 5,000 family offices, institutional investors, fund managers, CXOs, it's a C-suite execs, people who actually know how to run a company, and not just financial engineering. So what we do is we help with investment from funnel to liquidity, finding deals, vetting deals, and then we help raising capital. I mentioned my FINRA certifications. So I've got the 763, 79, and 24. And so we found a way to scale ourselves with a platform called Stonehaven. Now we have over 100 bankers and manatees across all asset classes collaborating. And then a really important part, which I think you'll appreciate, is talent. Back to that C-suite executives that know how to run something. So we created a strategic advisor program and a strategic partner program. And we have 100 plus that ranging from the current SVP at NYU in charge of innovation and inclusion, or former CEOs of ad agencies, so that if you are ex-gasification at a major oil and gas company, that you collect this community. So if something comes up, you lean on them, right? So it's been an iterative process, and I mean that underlined in all caps, because we are all teaching each other, including what our model is. But I think in the fourth part is very important, and it's probably the legacy is to leverage our community, but to optimize our philanthropic interests. There's not as much magic happening there as there should be, whether you're a family office, big and small. We were talking about this today. There's a lot of talk, and there's a lot of creating of things that we don't need to have 20 organizations, having lots of huge teams that go after foster care. We can have one or two teams and collaborate more. And then that ties to human trafficking, which ties to prisoner and education and reentry programs. All these things that separate silos exist, and we should do better at collaborate. So that's what we do. We'll probably do a lot more, because our community will just keep on evolving, because we're an open architecture platform where anyone can come. There are certain levels of membership, but everybody, we just did it. Today's Tuesday. We do a briefing, and everybody can join it. It's on our Zoom at 11 o'clock Eastern. And we have a subject, macroeconomic. Today it was, a diverging economy, global economy. And how do you, if you're going to play emerging markets, how do you do that? There are additional headwinds on emerging markets. So that was the theme today. Plus, we also had a conversation. Inequality came up as a theme, and then we had MLK was a theme. So we had someone from the King Center. So, next week somebody wants to talk about Ukraine and Kazakhstan. So we'll talk about Ukraine and Kazakhstan, help each other understand, shed lights on it. I'll pause there.
I'm trying to wrap my head around how a guy goes to school for liberal arts, winds up in legal and finance to a family office, now leading, in the industry, helping family offices. Where were you going to study, going down the liberal arts path? Where would that have gone if you did that?
Well, by the way, we all call it a fun fact. Every Thursday when I'm in the city, we have a lunch. So this Thursday at L'Adresse, it's in Bryant Park. And I have everybody do the same thing, by the way. Introduce yourself. We added a fun thing. It's lunch. So we added fun facts. So fun fact, I ran for county commissioner when I was 19 years old. I worked for Senator Bob Dole, and I fancied myself getting into politics at the time.
Really?
And I was poli-sci history double major with a philosophy minor, because I AP'd out of all sciences. I thought I was going to be a doctor. So then I went to Brown University Summer School and learned about the grays and the humanity and so, yeah, I just, you're supposed to, Denison liberal arts is to learn how to think, right? And I didn't really go in with a particular major in mind. I think I was thinking psychology, but then I thought law school. That's the way to go, right? Because all these politicians with law school and the people that I was looking up to. And we talk about doing internships. I wish I had interned for a law firm. I would have realized what the grind was all about.
Yeah.
But, look, I think I have a lot of interns over because I'm part of a tradition of, that's why I went to Denison, because of a guy named Lou Mitchell, class of 1957, chairman of a bank, and took me under his wing, gave me an extra scholarship. Another fun fact, I got into some Ivies, but I just had no financial aid. So I appreciated mentorship, and I give it back, and I see all these students with energy. But I think the key is, like, what we do in finance is not rocket science. You just need someone to mentor you. I mean, there are some rocket science quant people, but which I think is unfair in the markets, but that's a whole different story. But yeah, I think it's just to give back. And now I got this whole community of ex-interns that are killing it. That's another great thing.
Yeah.
Didn't plan for that.
Yeah. All right. Got it. So what would happen if you went down the politician route? Like, let's just pretend, like, fast forward, where do you think you could have landed? Like, do you think presidential or Senate, or what do you think?
Well, there is an energy about a campaign at that time. So I went to the conventions and everything. But, I hate to say it, and we've been particularly today, it's not like an intellectual discussion. We were talking about, Martin Luther King. He found he had resolve, and he had found bridges. In fact, we're talking about a movie that I helped put together. It came out perfect time. It came out the week COVID came out. Forrest Whitaker, and a real story about the Ku Klux Klan in South Carolina.
No kidding.
And he it was a true story that the minister, he didn't fight with knives. He fought with love, and in turn, this Klansman, who also had a woman, she said, "You had a choice, the Klan or me." The point being, we need bridge builders. Like, I'm from Columbus, went to Michigan. These states hate each other for the High State Michigan game, and I'm the only, probably 1% that loves both schools. Go figure. But we need more bridges. And who knows how that all came together. But I don't think politics is for me. Politics today is, I'd rather not talk about it because it's so frustrating.
I get it. So we definitely don't need to go down.
We can control. So
yeah, but
like that's a mantra of our principles, that we don't. What is it? Someone said, I said no politics, but I guess it's okay to be political, just not too partisan. We're here to teach each other, and just like we don't pitch deals, we teach about themes. But yeah, politics is tough.
It's tough. Yeah. And there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world too. So it definitely could create very stubborn positioning on either side. Now let's talk about community and what does a good community, member do? So you talk about, I can teach, I can learn, I'm open to learn other things, right? So like what makes your community special in terms of what you built, in what terms of what you all are building?
So the mantra is that it's ours, and if you feel like it's yours, and then you like you're a co-owner, stakeholder in it, and the way you can come to these Tuesday briefings, you can come to our meetups on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays at 10:30, where we help sort of form what we want to. It could be just a discussion you want to have there, or maybe somebody wants to launch a podcast platform, right? Let's learn what he or she is doing, and have that person come on our show. Or maybe that person could interview us all in Miami this weekend or Monday. Hint. So we might have you experience our community.
Yeah.
It's just, as long as it's quality and compliant with my FINRA stuff, let's all help each other. And there are too many platforms out there. It's all about, you got to pay to play, or they're creating silos again. So my hope is that and you come experience it. Anybody here listening, you all, what we want you to do is share your special sauce, where your edges are, where your experiences are. So I was, whatever subject it could be. We've had a bunch of tax people ready to talk about tax reform for many months. Whatever it is, we create a circle around a 360 roundtable to create that event. Whether it's last week it was social equity in the cannabis world, or we have a big blockchain metaverse panel coming together. And while I don't know many of the panelists, it comes through our vetting of our community, and I think it's going to be a quality event. Each of those panels are going to come together, and it's a little sausage making in this community. And occasionally you have bad actors. We triage them, but everyone's sort of innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, no, that happens. Anytime you pull together a group of people, right? A big group of people, thousands and thousands, right? Your bad apples are going to be there. What does a bad apple look like in the world of family office or investing, or
Sure,
that world?
Well, you open with FINRA. That was so I wanted to come back to this. There are 2 points. One is what you don't want, and this is a deal community. Okay, caveat emptor, fine, that we're trying to allow people to see deals.
That's Latin for let the buyer beware, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But by going through an onboarding process that FINRA mandates before we would market a security, you have to do background checks, and you're looking at performance because you want top tier. So you can see, and sometimes I get back to that innocent for proven guilty. Those background checks, you don't just say, well, we can't take this on. You have to get to the bottom of it. Turns out the company had the same name, or whatever it is. But we don't want those who've got lawsuits or have have activities that it would be either not investable or not compatible with the community. The second thing is, it's sort of like the Wikipedia, where people talk what they see. So it could be somebody comes and, boy, he or she is pitching, either in the chat rooms or offline. They just came to troll, not to contribute. And that they know that that's part of our feedback loops. And I think and then a lot of people, we call it chaperoning or mentoring. Everybody is a co-leader, and everybody, when they're new people, actually, if you come to any of our Zooms, first thing we do, we try to see who's new, and nobody can be an iPhone. You have to announce who you put your full name on there. We want to know who's on there, and so that we know our community. That's also part of we have an app with a series of questions, so that the better we know you're asked, back to that alumni heritage, then we can help each other. And and I love, those are the things that early days of the alumni networking, when you have this event in Chicago and an older alum or hires a new graduate 1 week later. That's just fuel to my fire. And those things are happening all the time now, which is one reason why we do the talent part of what we do. But yeah, I just think there's so much serendipity of what we do, that what a community, because I don't want to be in the middle of all the conversations. I'm going to stifle it. So these things happen all on their own organically. Then they'll maybe the feedback loops will happen. Like, what do you know about that person? And well, maybe I don't know much, but I know Eddie and Rich, met with them, and I get the feedback, so that we try to help each other. So I think bad things come to light faster, and good things you want to back up the bus on.
Yeah. So when working with a family office, what are the things what pain points do you solve, for family offices that come to you for help?
So there are different sizes, generations, family offices, right?
Yeah.
So and all those impact your pain points. But you think typically they're going to look for 5 things. So the 4 I mentioned, they're looking to invest. So either some of them think I got insane deal flow, don't need more deals. All right, fine. But even when you're executing those deals, to vet them, or to, later you'll come to the talent, to run those companies, we can be helpful. Although I always take these things as a challenge when these huge family offices, because, when was the last time they were in Japan or China or Singapore? We got such an amazing global community. Then oftentimes they want to raise capital. So, we're there for that. There's a process. Again, back to the talent side, strategic advisors, partners, their philanthropy, but that impact, finding ways for their philanthropy to be leveraged, but a lot of times it's driven by values and or causes that impact investments could solve. And then I think that's part of also this 3.0 that's happening. I'm afraid with all these loops, I may have missed the core of your original question, but
Deal flow.
So
here's what I heard. Deal flow.
You'll simplify it for me.
Deal flow, vetting deals, the recruiting arm, bringing the right players to the table, the right people, maybe helping raise capital, and impact focus. Did I get those 5 points right?
Broadly, yeah. We put on the investing. It's a cycle. It comes from access to flow, vetting, and then sometimes it's execution. Sometimes it's co-investment. You can't do the deal unless you have a co-investor. I won't name it. There's a huge family office. A lot of families are competing with funds right now. So they're basically creating their own private equity or venture armies, which is what you have to do. But I would, and we can help them syndicate. This is an important point. If I could make it, you want to have a top tier lead investor in whatever you're doing. And oftentimes it's a fund. And some of these families this is part of that evolution. And I think, and this is the beauty, and you've seen it by doing podcasts. I've just listened, I watched, and you see first generations, they think they made the money and they're really smart. They made it for a reason. And then they think they can do it. And they don't invest in funds. And maybe they move it when they have to get to the next generation so that everything's all structured. Then they hire CIOs. But if they could just learn the value of, and I think our CIO council will teach them, of having little chips and lots of funds that'll give them, one, you don't need a big army because you've got that army. And the second is that you can double down and cherry pick. But when families sometimes need to syndicate, they're not the best stewards of other people's money unless they have a track record. Because what happens if the person dies? Does he have a team? Some of these are dysfunctional teams in these families sometimes. It's like a little Arc de Triomphe, everybody circling the principal. And so I find what you want to do, in fact, one of the things I did think our family office was good at is we would find the deals. Sometimes they're really big, so you need other capital, but we'd always try to bring somebody else that could help us with not just capital. So I think this point of who leads the deals is vital. And what we're doing is creating a whole community of leads, whether it's based on industry like cannabis or crypto, or if it's based on asset classes or geography. Like, we do a 2022 predictions, and several predicting, you can't say, like, why do we do it every year? Because nothing really changes in 1 year. But like the big picture, Africa, we've been talking about it for a while, but the demographics and other resources point to it. But how do you go about investing in Africa? Well, you need an ecosystem. So so geographically, we're not there yet. It's a work in progress for the community, but we're studying how to build all these ecosystems. And then, just as Yahoo and Google, you found copycats when I was, around the world. But we can compare notes, and a lot of smart families, that's what they're doing. But we want to do that, more and smarter.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point. There's this, I make the money, first generational wealth. We got a family office, the idea of syndication, right? Like doing deals with other people, lots of chips and a lot of pies, right? Versus competition. Like I see myself as I got to get that deal versus go in on it with a lead investor or, a power hitter, or maybe someone who's better at managing this kind of investment better than me. Do you see that is a turning point for family offices to get to the 3.0, the next level? And what usually is the pivot point that makes them go that direction, if so?
Well, a few jump to mind. Then I realized they're really outliers. That some go through that evolution really fast, and they have a team. They're only going to do directs, and then they start investing in funds. But then they realize they're not strategic, so they choose other funds, and then they start to launch their own funds. But they learn you got to play by the rules and create. Don't just this whole passing of the hat is often a mistake because no one's leading. And if someone is passing the hat and they don't have skin in the game and they don't show you a virtual data room that they built, and you're just doing it because you want to be part of a club, I would argue that most of those deals that are not well led are going to be most of the failures, those blow ups. And then you blow up your relationships, your friendships. And anyway, I've learned it from mistakes. I mean, that movie, right? I got my friends in that movie. I've learned from there. I'm going to do debt. I'm going to sprinkle and do debt in these movies. I'm not going to do equity unless I have some kind of unfair advantage. Anyways, but that's how you learn. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
And so some of these families, they, it depends on the principles, how open, what their mindsets are and their values, their culture. And then, it's Arthur Andersen, we had this, R to R, we're going to, from recruit to retirement, we're going to have all these people. That same little curve happens in the families, and the second generation could either keep it going or it falls or never know where it's going to go. But that's when oftentimes, that they don't, the second gen is not ready to lead. And you have to have CIOs and you have to have diversification across funds, but they've lost their alpha a little bit, not completely. So it's a really interesting dynamic of how you can use your edge. And I've learned this from families and these CIOs who will parachute. And one woman, she was the CIO for the Denison University, Adele Gorilla. And she just, she left Denison to go help a family deploy $1 billion in 2 years, because she was the perfect person. She was prepared to do that.
Yeah.
Now it's deployed. I feel like I'm advertising for Adele, but now she's sort of created an outside CIO office managing that family that she doesn't have to rapidly deploy it. And now she can do the same on a bespoke basis for others. But I've, that same, the flow you get from these funds, again, my advice, smallest chips you want to put in, a series of top tier funds across asset classes that you're looking at. It's not just they'll bring you deal flow, co-invest deal flow, or you should study that, but it's the information flow. First, the amplification. A venture fund, a seed fund is going to have 60 investments, let's say, dogs, tigers, unicorns, and some of them are going to really grow up, but you're going to learn from those portfolio companies and the reports that are coming from these funds. And there are families that do it better than the funds, and when they have their alpha and they create these teams, but it's an exception. So I think the 3.0 is to work with top tier managers, um, and sort of learn, like sort of like football, like you're sort of they're blocking and tackling, and you're sort of picking your gaps where you want to take your runs. And who wouldn't want an offensive line if you could have one?
Yeah. Well, I think when it comes to family wealth, I didn't come from family money. If we did get there, it'd be because of me or someone in my family wins the lottery, right? But I look at my kids and I go, okay, second generation. Let's just say I'm the one who creates a centimillion, you know, family office or something like that. How do I start preparing? I have an 8-4-2 now, 8-4 and 2-year-old. How do I start preparing them to manage the burden of the wealth, the responsibilities? How do I hand off money without screwing them up? How do I teach them to be good, maybe CIOs, or maybe just get them out of the family business altogether, right? Like what are your thoughts and what have you seen?
Well, some of that's like very philosophical, but what's great is almost every one of our, so back up. So we would have all these roundtables, and in the fall of 2018, actually, I think it was the summer. I had just come back from Asia. I said, we're gonna have our first global conference in New York, and we did. And we always have different panels. We have a zeitgeist panel, like the spirit of the times, emerging opportunities, like what's the next wave, and then on and on. We would always have a next gen panel and an impact panel, and the next gens were always interesting because it goes to that question. I mean, one I remember one family, I won't name them, like they remember the time when they found out that they were rich, and that's a pivotal time.
Yeah,
because you can either either become smug, and depending on what your values are, or you can realize the responsibility and the opportunity that you have. So there are a lot of families, like I was talking with someone today. One reason to do direct deals as a family is to educate the next gens. But you can still, I would argue, you can still bring them to the LP meetings. You can educate them that way too. But sometimes, buying businesses and trying to run them or whatever it's educational. So you want to include them, surround them with mentors. I've heard some good practice, let them choose their mentors. Sometimes if you choose it for them, 248 is an early age for that. But I suppose you probably just have, like my father-in-law said, it's not what I say, it's what I do. So you have to live those values, and they'll see it.
oh gosh,
That more than what
no, I'm just kidding.
it's one thing to talk, and I don't know, I guess that I also wouldn't want to force them, and they come to their own conclusions, and if they feel like you sort of force them into some hole, then they probably, as soon as they have a chance, like, get the hell out of that hole.
Yeah.
Because you may have, they may feel like you've restricted their freedom and their future, and so I don't know. There's no perfect solution. It probably all comes back to communication, and there are some people who are really good at this, the soft side. There's the legal side, having all the trusts and the rules and dripping things out and letting you mature before you have access. And then there's the softer side of, some families I've seen that where they have their retreats, when you get to all these generations involved. So I can only be an echo what I'm seeing, because I don't, like you. My dad's a barber. He's amazing. Everything he did outside of hair, not except for real estate. Let's just say he often failed, but I was inspired by his passion. But I think I get up at 4:00 in the morning because of him. He was an Ohio farmer originally, so that work ethic. Back to what you see, right?
Yeah.
So I don't, I think I'm more unless we find a way to, and I'm very confident that we're creating this ecosystem that's going to enrich all of us. But I don't know about how you parent by the way, I've learned so much about mental health from our community. And I just, I just want my kids, I want them to try their best and choose their routes, but hopefully we mentor them or help provide them with mentors. Mentoring, it can't be underestimated. That is such an important factor.
Yeah. How did your dad go from Ohio farmer to barber?
Oh, there's, he was also a race car driver.
Get out of here. Your
Yeah,
dad sounds like a cool dude.
yeah, he's badass. So, like there's a story, he was going to take money out of the bank and buy a car or motorcycle, and my grandmother called the bank. He was already 18. The bank shouldn't. This is what community banks in Ohio did. They actually somehow they talked him out of taking the money out and buying this car or whatever it was, and he was going to get a barbering license. So that's the family story, and they were both in the room as they tell it, so I think it's true. But what the key is, here's the beauty. He was really good, and he started to cut this French woman's hair, and she had all these kids, and so he would barter French lessons for me for haircuts. And he would go to New York and watch Vidal Sassoon and Paul Mitchell, and literally stand next to them. He's like 5'7", so he's just watching them cut, and then he would fly them in to teach. The only thing about the hair, so he had 100 people working for at one point. Terrible industry. If someone gives you a deal to buy a hair cutting services, because you teach these people, and then they could all just go right across the street or right next door and open up a salon, and they did. But so, I was it was getting me to France when I was 8 was part of who I am too. Yeah, from a small town, in blue collar Ohio.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So how many languages do you speak?
Говорю по-русски, je parle en français.
That's 2.
En español.
2.5, 3. So we're there.
Non posso parlare italiano. No, you always know like 10, 15 sentences.
Yeah.
Well, I lived abroad, so you end up having an expat community around you, and for some reason terve comes to mind in Finnish.
Now let's just say we close a huge deal, and we can live anywhere we want, build whatever house we want, whatever kind of community we want, in any location. Where's your favorite place that you would want to live?
Okay, we're veering off the deal side, but fine.
I gotta go there.
Sure. Well, I've seen there was a few people that I think what you want, that I would want, is not one place, but I'd want a circuit. Like I'd want to be, I'd love to be in the south of France for a few bits, and I love to probably be some other places, a few other warm places. I don't know which I would choose exactly, but there'd be a beach involved. But you'd also, I love the urban dynamic. So you'd have a place in the city, New York. I suppose, something close that's also not, to go to the south of France or Mexico. Maybe it's the, it seems cliche, but it's just what I know in the Hamptons. But I'm, from Ohio, so we like, I like the outdoors. Not everybody in my family does. So, but I don't mind getting a little taste of everything. I don't want to be. You said you have to live one place. I'd want to keep moving too. I want to try and look at new things and find new places. Now, I will say if no one's ever been there, if you haven't been to Bali or Phuket, those are bucket list places to go. Not necessarily to live, but just to want to go back there.
Go check it out. Yeah.
Again, some people have said that in And I know we have one family office who's created his portfolio where it's basically all ETFs on the public side. And he does alternatives with funds, occasional deals, but he has the ability to leave for 6 weeks or go to place X and do yoga for a week. And that wouldn't be bad either.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that at all.
No.
So, Mark, back to deals then, right? I love taking people because I got to know I got to know about the deal maker, right? Behind every deal, there's a deal maker, and when I could get to know the deal maker, deals come, right? So that's the purpose, mission, and vision of this show is to let people know, get to know deal makers, and then do deals together, right? So that's why we put everybody's contact information in the show notes so that people go, hey, I got a family office, need some help, need to hire a CIO. Can you help us, right? Or we want to grow and expand, or I want to be a part of a community. Then they could connect with Mark. So let me ask this question. When it comes to recruiting and working, at what point in your experience have you seen that it's a good time to bring in an external CIO for a family office?
Well, and it doesn't have to be a full-time CIO. I think that's important. And I think it's good to have, it depends on what the size is. And some families are and what are the alternatives to? Because you can go to an institution like a Cambridge, right? And they will do manager selection and, yada, yada. But I think this is back to that 3.0 model. We're putting together, a CIO council that has a menu. So, rather than choose the prefix, you can, fractionally take somebody that can help you with, and I've seen this, a lot of times you'd have co-CIOs of the multi-billion families. Someone takes care of the liquids in the public market, someone takes care of the illiquids and alternatives, and then they have their teams and all that, just as endowments, and pensions would. But I think if you're just depends on if you're evolving, you need someone that is trusted. So I think sometimes you may not know how to manage a CIO. You might need somebody you trust full-time, part-time, or on your family office board to manage those CIOs. Sizing wise, that's a tough, but I think if you could scale it, but with partial, but not, you might limit yourself because you might lose those people, and that's a risk. But I think if you're a 50 million, like a high, but if you're on the rise, you probably don't do that yet. But you probably do that. Definitely, you do that if you anticipate multi-generational. You're on the cusp of it, and it's probably not a bad thing, even if you're in your 40s, 50s, to have somebody waiting or some process, some transition plan in place. But I thought you were going to ask a different question.
What did you think I was going to ask?
I thought you were like, what kind of deal maker are you? And I was gearing up my mentality.
I threw a curveball. No.
So let me be a politician and answer the question that I wanted you to ask.
Yeah.
And I was just reflecting. So being a lawyer, while I didn't like the grind, it's useful to have, like, I'm ambidextrous, and in many ways, not always.
You could read minds. No, I'm just kidding. You could use both hands. Got it. There's a joke from Zoolander or something like that. Sorry, that was terrible.
I'll have to Google that one. I love Zoolander, by the way. But having the legal mentality, having the being in client service too, and then you have this financial model. So you think everything's like either a term sheet or a legal document that you're going to back into, but it has to be driven by financial model, which has drivers, and then having worked for an accounting firm, you think about risks. as a lawyer and as a deal maker, every deal has to be, it should be a win-win. And if it's not, you have to question it on both sides. So I particularly when you have a community, because I am advocating for a fund, right? So I'm not in the community settings, but I know my community, and I think, well, if you want to have an impact, here's an education fund, or here's a health tech fund, or whatever. But I think the thing is, particularly if you're doing, funds are easier in a way, but deals have governance, and governance anticipates potential failure. That's one reason why I don't like direct deals, because I never give up. And
You're tied to the deal.
I keep companies alive longer than they should be. I don't know why, it's just in me. I'm a rescuer, but I've learned I gotta be more disciplined. And funds are they can't just put more resource, both time and money, because they have to report to stakeholders, which is another reason not to do direct deals. Because a direct deal, everyone thinks, okay, they're in the romance phase, but most deals don't. Nothing occurs according to plan. It could go better than planned, right? But there's usually a bump, and you got to fix it. And some of the back to the families don't have the teams to fix. They don't have a bench of operating advisors. But you were asking about deal approaching deals, but I think the key is, know your strengths, and hopefully you're finding win-win. If you can have triple wins, quadruple wins, that's even better. That's what we're trying to do with impact.
Yeah. So in your community, right? Like one of the things that you do well in serving, kind of like the 5 things, the from funnel to liquidity. So investing, right? Helping family offices kind of figure that out. Vetting deals. The recruiting arm for chief investment officers, CIOs. Helping raise capital.
Even COOs, CFOs, the whole C-suite.
All right, management teams and leadership teams, and then impact. Talk to us about impact and why is that important? Like we're talking to a family office and they go, listen, I don't care about impact or whatever. Like, why should they care about impact?
Well, they care about something. Maybe, and there's often the investment team is separate from the foundation teams, and that I think that's changing, that they're sort of morphing. And you may be an oil and gas guy from Houston, but you care about something, right? So and you probably are going to benefit at least from the S and the G. But regardless, you care about, helping the military vets, or something, there's something that you care about. And maybe there's a company that employs military vets. So you don't have to continue, just I'm going to feed the family. I'm going to give them a job. I'm going to find some like a sustainable investment platform. Because if you can, because that really is, it's really, again, the 4, you've hit it on lots of times. It's investing, raising capital, sort of connecting to talent or strategic partners, and optimizing your philanthropic interests. But that's that bridge back to investing between those two, as you do this 360 circle. And what we're trying to do is create, based either on values or SDGs, a taxonomy, so that what your philanthropic interests are, to what impact investing opportunities might be out there, either our community or outside the community. So I think that's part of the more, and it could be whether it's the foundation or the family office, if they are ultimately, okay, they may have mouths to feed and they got, they need liquid, so have a fixed income, have some kind of cash flow based, but if you're trying to grow, and then what are you growing it for? Because you're going to help some cause. Well, there are ways to do that, oftentimes in the impact investment space. So we're trying to filter for that. In fact, this is also important. We're also trying. There's some gaps in society, but the female-led funds and female-led founders and Black and brown fund-leds and founders, they're not getting the capital opportunities. And so one of the things we're trying to do is find the top tier funds. I prefer funds first that can fulfill that inclusive mission that we want to have. That's also part of what I like to think is the 360. Everybody needs to be at the table. That's when you make your best decisions. And I think we have some initiatives like that. Maybe I'm going too much in this direction, but like we've been to the Chicago South Side. I don't know when's the last time you were in the Chicago South Side.
Long time.
But Cleveland and Detroit, I've spent some time also have their issues. But we're trying to find ways. There's a lot of philanthropic programs. There's a squash playing programs in the inner city, but we're trying to find ways to look for top tier accelerators, venture funds so that there's a lot of risk there, but the deal valuations are going to be lower. And if you got somebody that will have a disciplined funnel, but yet it helps those communities, I think that's probably the most impactful thing that we can do. And maybe it's, so actually there's a call to borrow. You can come join it. We're going to have that discussion, is to have a disciplined approach for our community to do impact, to make an impact. And we're going to try, because if you show me a bunch of funds, I don't know this community, I don't know the founders. I wouldn't know how to look at real estate in South Side of Chicago. I think that's an opportunity. You can see it. It's happening. You should. I wish I could. You could take a tour. It will develop. I think the Midwest in particular. We've done these Midwest tours with reshoring. There are a lot of problems, but I think the Midwest got hammered in the 80s and 90s by basically from the offshoring and WTO, and China was the biggest beneficiary of it. Midwest was one of the worst hit by it, but it's coming back. And I'm excited about the renaissance that's happening there. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, a lot of it driven by universities like University of Chicago, Ohio State, Michigan, and the rest. So I think there's a lot of impact there and I think these universities, their tech transfer programs, we could optimize those. Which comes back to you need that C-suite of people to turn to. They're there with their own deals, but they're also there. They can be helpful to commercialize some of those things and help and mentor. Back to that mentoring. A lot of those people in the South Side, they've got fire in their belly, but they don't give them a little capital in any mentoring. And that's the difference. I got lucky. I got mentors. Yeah. When I was growing up. That's what we have to do as a community, is keep mentoring.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important in a community. First of all, to have a community, to be a part of a community of the kind of people that you want to be like. So you might have a job or your business that you're running or whatever. Be a part of a community. Invest in being a part of a community of people that like, trust, and want to be like, and want to hang with, and want to do deals with. That's that's really cool. What you
I vetted you through my community. And it's similar.
I passed the test, huh?
You passed the test because
so far.
No, but one of the things that they said is you're a family man. Mm-hmm. That's important to me too.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. That's what else am I doing all this crap for, right? So that I raise up my family. Like, all the other stuff is secondary. It's cool, and yeah, it'd be fun to do a bunch of, but yeah, family is everything. That's what we've learned. I think this is what is changing in the world of and I think that you mentioned mental health and something that you're hearing a lot about in the world of investing and business running and such. And I think that what people are finding more and more and more is that the things that matter, right? Your family, your belief systems, your mission, impact, like money and financial, that's great. And those are important. But when not paired with family, impact, and all that, it's all dust. It all kind of drifts away, or you capture it and you look behind and there's nobody with you. Right. So it is important to
Yeah.
me, man. I appreciate you even saying that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, there's a case in point of vetting, but also, understanding your values. I had a flashback that I tried to bring my kids to spend a work, like one day at work. Because yours are 2, 4, and 8.
Yeah. 248.
A little early for that, but you're going to find that you're cool now, but you're not as cool when they get older.
Whoa.
And then
Always will be
suddenly,
cool.
suddenly you're cool again. But
Nah, man. My daughter, so 8-year-old, 4-year-old, so daughter, son, daughter. I take them yard sailing with me.
I have a daughter, son, daughter.
Oh, really?
It's a great, and you're going to find your 8-year-old can carry a lot of babysitting weight later.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. We're investing heavily into preparing for that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I love taking my kids to work. We go to the 1 Million Cups event, so they get to see some pitching. I love taking them to garage sales. I love having, like let them run a lemonade or brownie stand.
That's my favorite. When we lived in the city, we'd sell out in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Ocala doesn't have the high foot traffic, but it's getting there. It's getting there. So Mark, I loved hearing about your story and getting to know you better on a human to human level. Let me ask you this question for people in the audience, family offices, investment groups, people who want to learn more and be a part of a community of what you're building. Where could people go to connect with you and do a deal with you?
So we have an app. It's 361firm.app, and everyone can join it. There are different levels of it, but that's probably the easiest. We have a website, 361firm.com. The app can't do everything. That's why we have both of them together at the moment. I'm M. Sainer at 361firm.com. Feel free to reach out. I would say /onboard.com/onboard, you'll see 4 things. You get to onboard your deal or fund. That's the first step in our process. So our whole deal team looks at it in our format that we review every day. You can onboard yourself as a strategic advisor. You can onboard your philanthropy and your philanthropic interests. And then we say just onboard yourself onto our app. And that it tells us more about you. But literally we have a Zoom that never changes. It's 361-3601. And I'm not sure I'm going to put the password here.
They can reach out to you and get that password, right?
Yeah, but reach out. But once you have it, we're there every Tuesday at 10:30, and then 11 we do a briefing, and then Wednesday, like tomorrow, we have group. It's our meetups. This is part of that sausage making. We just sort of provide a place for everybody to get together, and then if you're getting ready for our Naples and Miami event, you can go into that breakout. If you're interested in our trucking event or our next cannabis event, you can go to those breakout rooms and you can free flow. You have control. Once I open them up, you can move around. Thursday at 10:30 is philanthropy and impact. Is that for that crowd, which is a lot of it is about designing things right now, how we're going to our approach. And meanwhile, we're taking inventory and shining spotlights on a lot of people's philanthropies, not raising money for anybody. That requires diligence and discipline, and we'll get to that. So we started a foundation and stopped. I don't want to take people's money until I have an optimal strategy on that side. But with the community, we'll what I'd love to do And there's some other organizations. I like to really have our community throw our shoulder against two or three problems, and then have like, you know, a hackathon and go at it. And so Robinhood here in New York, we've had Peter Borish on. He's going to be down in Miami. I guess you're going to see this after Miami happened, but so they raise money every year, 100 million, 200 million, and they use it. They don't like have an endowment, but what I think is interesting is the sort of the skunk works thing that they do also. Usually in February, Peter wasn't sure if it's going to be out with COVID and everything, but that's where they put their ecosystem together and compare notes. I'm excited because that's the kind of thing that, and he made an interesting statement. In philanthropy, we're not taking enough risk. Like you have venture in your portfolio, where are we? You don't have to put, and you should spread it around, diversify, but we aren't taking enough risk. And so they created a labs initiative. So that's another thing. Once you find a good lead, back up the bus. And so I'm trying to learn from everybody on the philanthropic side, and then always be helpful to them.
Well, what you built is an incredible community. So, you know, for the audience here, for the fellow deal makers, I encourage you to check it out. Go to the show notes. You can click on the links, go directly to connect with Mark and his team, and get on it. See if it's a good fit for you guys, and you know, add value. Don't be a troll, right? If trolls, just stay away. And you know, I just appreciate you coming on the show, Mark, sharing your history, right? Talking about your personal life.
You got things out of me that I don't.
That's my
superpower.
superpower.
A couple, cocktails with me to get that out. But
yeah, well, I appreciate you, man. And fellow deal makers in the audience, if you're looking at a deal or need help with a deal or want to talk about a deal here on the show, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. See you, everybody.